Shalom and welcome to another Petachamo podcast from Bay Abidan teaching Noahide Judaism for Messianic Hebrews. It is Friday the 14th of November 2025 and I have with me in the studio JC from Quranic Endgame. Welcome back JC, how are you doing?
I'm very well. Shalom. Hi, Joe. Always lovely to have another conversation with you and to show some things to your audience. So, yeah, I'm very well. How are you doing?
Baruch Hashem, I'm doing all right. So we've got the title there, The Mysterious Muqattaʿat, and we do have a presentation that we're going to be going through today. Here it is. With some nice picture there with JC and me, at least our avatars. The Mysterious Muqattaʿat. We'll be going through that. But first, I want to remind you of JC's channel. This is the new name for his channel. As you can see, he's calling himself at this point, the name on his avatar there is Quranic Endgame. And that is the new channel there, Quranic Endgame. The new symbol, so if you see that symbol, that's JC, and the Quranic Endgame, that's the new channel there. He's got the old videos there that he's done before, all the way going all the way back for about almost a year now. Actually, it's 1 year ago, so his anniversary. Did you get an anniversary sort of email from YouTube saying congratulations on 1 year?
I don't think I have. If I did, I actually missed it. Maybe I actually blocked it or sent it directly to
Probably.
spam.
There's more YouTube spam. Get rid of that. I also got that recently. I'm 5 years old. This channel now is my 5 years, and I've changed the name 1,000 times, which is not a good idea to do, folks, just so you know, because people are still looking for Red Judaism, and they can't find me. And here I am on currently, what is I can't remember what my name of the channel is right now. What are we called right now? Proto-socialism. I can't even remember the name of my channel. I will change it again, by the way. Proto-socialism, Noahide Judaism for Messianics. That's the name of my channel. Yeah, because I'm just always trying to work out what is the message. But I think I might actually reduce it again to something like The Internationalist, or maybe something completely unrelated. Maybe might call it Messiah Mission or something like that. I'm not sure, but eventually we'll get there. So changing names, and it's now Quranic Endgame. So do make sure that you don't go through your favorites and say, hey, what's this Quranic Endgame? I'm not a fan of Quranic. I don't remember subscribing to get and then unsubscribe. Do not do that. Make sure you click subscribe on Quranic Endgame. And that's I've just closed it now, but I'll put it back again. That's the image that you want to see, not mine. I've got to get back to his page. This is the image you want to see when you're searching for Quranic Endgame. That's what you want to see. And you know that that's JC when you see that picture there. Oh, it's a bit flashy. Why is it doing that? Well, that's because my computer's old and rubbish.
It's
actually dying.
It's not a bug. It's not a bug. It's a feature.
It's a feature. Does it do that? That's a feature. It's not a bug. It's a feature. But there's a feature of, just so you know, this is an old Acer laptop, which are designed to have their, I hate they built-in obsolescence they do with this sort of stuff, but it's designed to have the power point when you plug them in. The weak spot is the power point there. So if you think your Acer is broken, it's actually just because the power point has been connections have damaged, and everything else will work fine. But unfortunately, I haven't found a way to replace it properly. I replaced it with the right ampage, but I had the wrong length of cable, so I had to cut a hole in the bottom of my laptop and stick the cable out. And it's plugged. It's got this like little tail sticking out. Anyway, not a very good way to run a show, but hey, I don't make much money from this channel. So, all right. Okay, very good. So it's the Mysterious Muqattaʿat, and JC is in control. Oh, we got greetings here. So we'll say hello, because you're lucky we start to say hello before we started. So God bless you. Thank you for coming along. John Lee, he says, happy Friday, Shabbat Shalom, Achim. And you too. Thank you for joining us. Anybody else wants to put the messages in now, do so. Otherwise, we will not be able to see them until the end of the show. Actually, I just realized there'll be a lag of about 3 seconds or so before you see that. And then you're going to have to type, and you probably won't get there beforehand. So John Lee is the one who wins the competition today. Congratulations. And we're off. Okay, so take it away, JC.
Great. Well, first, welcome, John. It's good to actually see you as well over here, and I hope you're going to enjoy this thing that we're going to discuss today, which is, of course, the Muqattaʿat. And Joe knows full well that that has been an interest of mine because we've discussed it many times
Mm,
before, and is one of these great, great mysteries when it comes to the Quran, because there are 114 surahs in the Quran, and 29 of them they begin with some random selection of consonants. These ones are the ones that we have there of letters. So some of them appear 5 times, some twice, some other times, some once, and nobody knows the meaning of them. So it's one of those mysteries. In the end, if you go to the tafsirs, you will see how everybody tries to figure it out. The tafsir writers will try to make a numerical claim for it, or that it means the names of Allah or something. But
mm,
in the end, they will conclude only Allah knows. But they did try to figure it out. Now, if we just think for a minute, why is it that we have these disjointed letters at the beginning of of so many surahs? It is not because it is a mystery that only God knows. The reason that those are there is indicates that at one point in time, those things made sense, and then that meaning was lost. It's really as simple as that. No one
obviously,
would
yeah.
write all of this Quran and then they write those things in there. Ha ha ha! This is a mystery. They will say that then is from God, and it's like no, surely they meant something, and then through copying and so on, the meaning was lost. And today we're going to try to unpack a few of them and see if we can get the meanings of them, of all of this, which is of course a really high percentage of the Muqattaʿat. And the reason we're going to focus on this are there are clues that are available now and they weren't in the past, which might actually tell us what the meaning of the Muqattaat in question was, and probably give us some answers as to how the problem became a problem, at what point in time they actually lost the meaning of it. So as we're going through all of this, I think there is a very good chance that some of them might actually be wrong, and time will prove it. And some of them, they might actually just be right, and the time will prove it. So
Mm.
let's see what we find.
So you've got red boxes around some of these, and some of them don't have red boxes around. Does that mean we're going to deal with the ones which got red boxes, or and the others not going to be dealt with, or what? Or are there some which we're not going to deal with today? Are we going to deal with all of them?
The ones in the red boxes are the ones that we are going to look at today. Hopefully,
Mhm.
that will inspire people watching this to then figure out the other ones because they are all different, as we are going to see. They became disjointed for different reasons. So basically, we need all hands on deck, and maybe after this presentation, some people will say, "Hey, hang on a minute, that now I can read another one that is not in the red box." So fingers
Okay.
crossed, we inspire people to find more and more answers, and we solve this one once and for all because it's been 1400 years. I think it's
Mhm.
due.
All right, then. Very good. Okay, take us next. Take us through it then.
Well, so the first one, and this is something that we're going to be looking at quite a bit, is this website here, ER Quran, from Shadi Nasser. So he puts together in this website the Qira'at, the different readings that have been found. Now, if we
Very
think
good.
that most of us, we are using the Hafs Quran, that's the version that we use. So in that version, we already have the problem of the Muqattaat. Like, for example, we will have this Surah 68, and it says Nun, and it's a consonant, and nobody knows. Maybe, just maybe, we are incredibly lucky, and Shadi Nasser has found another reading that actually had the answer. Basically, at one point there was an answer, and then something happens that gets lost, and
Yeah.
that is what we have in the halves. So the closest thing to traveling back in time is to hope that Shadi Nasser finds a different reading that had the answer all along.
Hmm.
And that might actually be this case with Nun. So we see that in his readings, he actually writes these ones in here. So this one is
Right.
Nun, and nobody knows the meaning. It's disjointed, just the letter N. I will try to say like in English, so I will just say N.
Yeah. Sure. Good.
But in other versions, in other readings, it would be spelled out phonetically, like the full thing. Imagine this in English as if you had a number 8 in here, but in here you had the number actually spelled out in letters, something similar. So
EIGHT. Yeah, and here
yeah,
it's nun at the top with example number 1 and number 2. This is a nun, and number 3, 4, and 5 actually spell it 3 letters, nun vav nun, or that is NUN to spell out the word nun. Yeah, excellent. So you found
yes.
some variations. Good.
Yeah, well, you found this one. I had no idea about it, and after you told me, it's like, okay, let's do some digging. And this is just some of the explanations that the tafsir writers actually try to write. We have here like Al Jalalain and some of the others, and people can go and have a look. They will see other tafsir writers saying only God knows and other things. Of course, everybody's trying to make it up, but seeing as now we have two data points. Number one, from the Qira'at, that at one point, in some places, this was spelled out phonetically. That's number one. And number two, that these people are saying that nun would mean inkwell,
Yeah.
as we
Mhm.
have it here.
Excellent.
For example,
Makes perfect
nun
sense.
by the pen, nun is the inkwell, and the pen is a pen of light. The verse begins with nun and the pen and what they inscribe. So
Hmm. Makes perfect sense.
whether,
They. Hmm.
yeah, I think that's why probably they joined the dots very early on when they were trying to figure it out. And they thought, hang on a minute. So if we have the pen, what comes before has to be related to the pen.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
There's the other. Yes, go on. Carry on.
And that's like the two data points spelled out phonetically, and also that would actually spell out a word. It wouldn't be some mystical sign. For example, the N stands for Nasara or it stands for Nur. It's like, no, no, no. It was more clear and more basic. It was spelled out and it actually meant a word. And then
Well,
when time passes, it becomes, they lose the meaning of it and it becomes just a consonant and nobody knows the meaning ever again.
perfect. Uh, Very good.
Right. Cool. So then with this in mind, we have another one. And I think this one is probably the easiest one to see what is very likely to have happened. So I spoke about this one actually with Joe, obviously comments for the audience about this one, because
Hmm.
on this Qira'at, we see that it was also spelled out
Hmm.
phonetically. So we had the
Wonderful.
S,
Hmm.
the A, and then the D.
Hmm.
And I had tried to figure out what word could it be if if the actual surah began with the S and the D instead of just the D, what it could be. And Joe said, well, the obvious one would be Saddak with a Q at the end, the kaf,
Sadiq. Hmm.
Saddik,
Yeah.
because it's a very important word. So I think you're probably right about this. Let's try to make a case for it
Okay.
that that's what is likely to have happened. So this is the beginning of the surah as it is now. So we have Sad on its own, and then we have Wa, and then Al Quran, and it continues. Great. So before, 1 second, why is this not working? Okay, here. So if we look at it without any diacritics, remembering that these things would have become disjointed very, very early on. That's the whole problem, really. They became disjointed. They didn't have the diacritics. They didn't have the dots. Things were very easy to be confused. So at the point when this was written, would have looked like this. So we have removed all of the dots and dashes and harakat and all of that. Now, when we add the D, as some of these readings say, so we don't have just the sad, we have the sad and
Hmm.
we have the D. And then the very next thing that appears is a wow. This, without diacritics, it would have looked almost identical to this G in here, this W,
Hmm.
being a Q because
Yeah.
they don't have dots.
Right.
So
Well, there
also
you go.
another,
Sadiq. Exactly. Sadiq.
yeah,
Righteousness. Hmm. Hmm.
and the D, even to this day, it doesn't attach to what comes after. So there would have been a gap right here anyway.
Hmm.
So you can
For sure.
imagine that someone writes this to begin with, and then because of his handwriting, there is almost no difference between the wa, the wow, and the kaf. It's almost identical. by the time that it gets to the next guy, he thinks
He
this is a
thinks it's
wa,
yeah,
and they separate them in that manner. So if
very
we
good.
reverse engineer this backwards, we would get something a little bit like this. And I do apologize if the diacritics
Harakat.
or something
Mhm.
are a little bit wrong.
Okay,
And the
but,
meaning would have been
yes, go on.
something along the lines of something like that.
The truth of the Quran, the possessor, the remembrance, and the truth, the Sadiq of the Quran, of course. If it is Sadiq, Sadak. The Sadik is in Judaism. Of course, remember I don't speak Arabic. My pronunciation is Judeo-Arabic, and I read it as Judeo-Arabic. So the Tzaddik in Judaic culture and tradition. The theory on this channel, if you haven't worked it out, is that I promote the idea that it was written by people with a Judaic background, um, and a Messianic Judaic background, non-Jews, Messianic Noahides, basically. And the Tzaddik is actually the Messiah. So that is another way of saying referring to the Messiah, specifically Yesod, or the Sefer, one of the Sephirot, which actually um, sort of embodies the Messiah, is Yesod, which is the Tzaddik or Tzadikut.
Right. And when we actually look at Rasam only, it seems to be every single consonant. The only problem that then we had was this D, which is now attested through the Qira'at, through the other
Perfect.
readings. So it just fits incredibly well. And in Arabic, the definite article would only be on this word. So if it had been the truth and the Quran or something like this, then we would have a definite article here. But in Arabic, it would be read something like this, like find the truth or something like that of, when the definite article appears only on the second
Mm-hmm.
line. But anyway, this would be maybe for Arabic speakers to look at this and say, okay, this would actually have worked exactly with the same rasam, but also changing some of the diacritics or the vocalization. But it does seem like the obvious answer should be the sad with the dal, and then this being confused with a kaf, and one probably solved.
Here's an interesting thing. Um, I think it was you brought it up last in some of our discussions in the past. I can't remember how many months ago it was now, but the idea that Quran may be from Karan, meaning the light which came off the face of Moses when he came down from the mountain, or sort of glory or light. And so here, the Sadiq of the light, the possessor of the remembrance, could also be a reference to Moses. That's another possibility there.
Mhm. Much of the Quran, when there is something vague like this, one could argue this is describing Jesus, and very often it's like it could be describing Moses. Uh,
Mm.
yes, it's just that vague. So yeah,
And
certainly.
it's actually those are the two main characters of the Quran, Jesus and Moses. That's what it's all about, really. That it's quite odd that
Yeah.
the so-called the founder of Islam isn't mentioned, and the few times that the word Muhammad comes up in the Quran could be a reference to Jesus again. Each of those times.
Yeah, very cool. So let's see if we can find others that point in this direction, or at least getting uh, possible answers to this problem. So I think this one just fits very well.
Very
Another
good.
one that I think it should be somewhat clear, but there is a little bit of a problem, is this one, which is Taha. And even the surah is called Taha, and nobody knows the meaning. Now, when we look again at the readings, we
Mm-hmm.
see that there was a lot of different confusion. There were many different ways of actually writing this, including these ones which mean an irregular. And if something is irregular, you know it probably contains the truth. It's just like this,
Mm.
because if this is the standard, we would still be having the problem. But what is interesting is that although we do have this taha, and sometimes they write it like this,
Separately.
like
Mm.
not as one word but separate. But in the past, we have these two here, and these ones are very interesting. This one would have been tawa. This ending ya, very often it is read as an a sound, and even today in the Quran you would see many words that end with the ya, and they
Isa,
will
for
add a
example.
dagger alif. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Perfect example.
Musa
So
as well.
the Musa and the other one, I saw another one, big one, just as I was preparing for this. But yeah, lots of them. And so this, in theory, if this is how it was written, they would have read this as Tawa. Then we see that there is like a bit of a problem. They could have moved. This is not supposed to be, by the way, in reverse order. It's supposed to be random. But anyway, from Tawa to Taha,
Mhm.
spelled with an ya, which then in the end, at this point, they have already lost all meaning of the word. And
Yeah.
all that they hear when they copy this is taha. So
Mhm.
taha, taha,
Mhm.
and it makes no sense.
Mhm.
Now, interesting thing is that this consonant, this T, I will just say it in English. So the T in here is a somewhat unusual consonant. Is like if in English we have Z. It appears a lot, but it's not as common as an A or a B or a C. So I looked on this surah to see if every instance that we have a ta, to see if we have a ta and a ha somewhere, or a ta and a wa. And as it happens, we do have here. Just before I click on the next slide, very often in the Quran, we have something at the very beginning, which it becomes the name of the surah, and then that word appears within the surah. We have it in Al Maida, for example. We have Surah Al Maida, and then at the end of the surah, you have Al Maida mentioned twice. Miriam, Imran, again and again. We will have one word at the very beginning, which very often becomes a title, and then that appears somewhere. So by looking at all of the T's in the surah, we happen to find this one instance where we have exactly the same rasam, without the a, of course,
Mm.
but the same rasam as that word that potentially was the precursor to taha. And this word is interesting for many reasons. It's meant to be this, tuwa. It has become
Mhm.
tuwa.
The value of Tua.
And the value of tuwa, which
Mm.
I think I'm right in saying that it doesn't exist. There is no attestation of a place called Tuwa.
Mhm. As far as I know.
Yeah. So just to like, I will just actually play this card, which is from Gabriel Sauma. This is not my area of expertise, so he could be 1000% right, he could be 1000% wrong. I'm just saying that in his book, the Quran misinterpreted, mistranslated, and misread, he says there is a problem with this word because basically it doesn't exist. Then he explains a little bit of how this word evolved from the Syriac and that the meaning of that word was either glad tidings, well, I've checked this, it says good as well, that kind of meaning. And then his rendering of this verse would be the Quran is saying to
Wonderful.
Moses, take out your sandals. You are well in the sacred valley. Now,
Mhm.
I would fail to see how, if he's right about this, well, that would become the name of the surah. That being said, now it's Taha, which makes no sense. So I think this the name of this place is likely to have meant something for the original guys to such a degree that they would actually have a surah called that, and it was not originally an Arabic word. They lost the meaning and the whole thing were pear-shaped, but that the answer to the name of the surah, or rather taha, is very likely found in understanding this word.
This is very interesting. Have you seen our videos on Turabdin in the past?
Mm,
No.
no, I don't think I have.
Because he's mentioning Turabdin here as well. So let's read the Syriac Tua, Tua, meaning glad tidings, well, in Syriac, is a shift between the letters B and W. The word Tuwa, Tuwa, is because it's from Taib, he's saying Taib, and Tov in Hebrew, Tov, and Tuwa in Syriac. You see, this is a proto Semitic root. He's making the connection here. It means good. And it's also another Baal Shem Tov, the master of the good name, Shem Tov being the good name of God. So that's there too. It's a messianic reference. The word tuva is also pronounced as tuba, or Tuba, which is interesting because you have the kings of Tuba, remember, which is a Himyarite kingdom. Use the use of the consonant W in Syriac vernacular in modern days is spread among the villages of Tur Abdin. So that's a particular pronunciation in Tur Abdin, which we mentioned is in our videos, in our earlier videos on this channel, is where we believe that these what we call the original Qur'ana, not to be confused with the Islamic Quran or the As-Sana al-Hadith or anything like the Quran, but what they call the Qur'ana was first translated into Arabic by the people of Turabdin, and they had that particular pronunciation. This isn't a story. You've got the reference in Robert Hoyland's book, Islam as Others See It or Saw It, and the story is when Amr or Umair or Omar or the Emir. I think traditionally the Muslims like to say this is Umair, but it's anyway the ruler of the Muslims at that time, and it corresponds to the time of Omar, was converted to be a messianic believer, previously having no belief in Jesus as the Messiah at all whatsoever. But he becomes a believer in Jesus as Messiah. He's converted by the Syriac bishop, or monk, we could say, who is Gabriel of Tur Abdin. Gabriel converts him and brings him, and he asks Gabriel to translate the stories of the Christianity for him, which is called the Qur'ana. So Gabriel of Tur Abdin gets his team of Tayaya. It's actually in the story, it's called the Tayaya. They translate the Christian stories for him into an intelligible Arabic, an Arabic which Omar himself understands. I argue that Omar is a Karaite, and so he would have needed Judeo-Arabic to understand it properly. And it's interesting, if it was translated by them, then they would have used this particular pronunciation. So I think that Gabriel Salma has some very important points there. And I did not realize that he had printed that or said something about that argument, while I came to the same conclusion and completely independently from a Judaic point of view. So there you've got two independent corroborations of the same idea. Now also, JC did not know anything of what I've just told you either, did you, JC?
Nope.
So you got a third person who's come to the same conclusion now. So we're all coming to the same conclusion independently, and I think that's very interesting.
And well, so we will see if anybody actually has any other thoughts and say, no, hold on a minute, this could be something else. But after looking at the very least at the surah, you would expect to actually find the word somewhere, and it seems to actually not only match, then we have all of this information that we know the word was confused. There was a problem with it. So one can actually make a case for things actually moving in a particular direction, particularly when the people who were canonizing the book just didn't understand the original word, which, it happens a lot with some of the very early scholars. But okay, so that one appears there. So hopefully that will be either the answer or get us very close to the answer. Let's see what else we find.
Very good.
So this one appears Tassin Mim. I'll say TSM. So this one appears twice. That is in Surah 26 and in Surah 28. And then in the one in the middle, Surah 27, we have TS. So we're not going to address TS only. We're going to address this one that has 3 consonants, and then see what happens. If this one happens to have an answer, it's possible that the one in the middle was the same and something different happened. But let's actually focus on this one. Once again, because this T is a very unique consonant, as in it doesn't appear all that often. If you see, like on this page, you will see it one more time in here, but the S and so on and the N's, they appear a lot. So do we have a rasm in this surah that has this consonant, the T, followed by an S or something? Well, yes, we do. Here. So this is, it will appear the rasam as this, or rather the root will be that. And as it happens, we have this word, which it would have a T and an S. I know it's the ones with the dots is the same. Early on, it would be, they would look identical. But in Surah 26, we happen to have in exactly the same verse, the same word pretty much, T, S, and then Ta, and then the Mim. So this is a bit unusual. At no other point we have this T followed by an S. It is a very unique thing. The fact that we have it right there in these surahs is certainly worth considering. Now, a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 times this rasam or this root appears in the Quran. Only 11. Out of those 11, 3 they happen to be in this surah, in these surahs, which have a muqattaʿat, which begs the question, is it possible or likely that they used to be something related to these words? That is what was the beginning of the surah, that was the muqattaʿat, the thing that became the muqattaʿat, and they just lost it. So I think the chances are yes, and we'll see the same with something else. I asked Grok some maths. Obviously, I cannot vouch for this. Anybody can actually do it at home. It's just a probabilistic study of what has happened. I ask if you have 114 boxes and you select two at random, which would be so 26 and 28, two at random, and then you throw in that mix 10 different items into those boxes. Because this one appears twice, I count it as one. So
Mhm.
what are the chances that two of those 10 items that you throw into the boxes at random will land exactly on those two pre-selected boxes, basically surahs 26 and 28? And it said basically incredibly unlikely.
Very
So
unlikely.
doesn't mean impossible, but if it's unlikely, I think there was a connection there. And as we've seen with the others, they lost a little bit of the meaning. Maybe they lost the ta, maybe they did something, but that the meaning of the surah most likely would have been something about striking or seizing or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And if anybody
Interesting that.
wants to do the
Sorry.
calculation, if anybody wants to do bigger calculation, we just please go ahead and let me know the prompt that you use. You can, with probability, you can actually do a lot of stuff. This is a very basic stuff. Just saying.
Yeah, very good. Oh, do check it out, because I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but we are aware at this point that AI is pretty rubbish at maths. But unless you're using which is tailored for mathematics, I think that the complex maths, physics, and chemistry GPT is pretty good. But do check it out for yourselves. If that is correct, then that possibility there, that probability is enough to pass scientific. That's what you're looking for. That's the sort of percentage you want to make sure that margin of error is considered negligible in science. If you were, for example, trying out a new medicine in a pharmaceutical company, and there was that percentage was likely to be harmful, it would be considered not harmful. So that's considered scientifically non-existent. Pretty good, interesting. So basically, no chance that it was uh, an accident.
Yeah, and if they are related, maybe that will give us more clues as to how the text actually evolved. If at one point, basically, if we have now two words that were meant to be related, one is the actual muqattaʿat and the other one is the words in the surah,
Yeah.
maybe, some linguists or scholars can say, okay, so how did they go from A to B, and help us understand what happened a little bit better? One can hope.
Okay. So that's the possible. That's the meaning you're suggesting. Do you have an explanation then of the verse, or what it means in context?
With the verses, no. What I would say is that if they're taking this as a strike or seizure or seize, if that is the case, that would be just the very beginning of the verse. It would mean something just like that, but they just edit it wrong, or basically they changed it, and now it doesn't make any sense. The other possibility is that all of these words happen to be wrong. This is not what it means, and someone who, like Gabriel Sauma, could look at this and say, oh, okay,
That's
so if
true.
the original form was TSM,
Hmm.
then maybe these words are wrong, but that is way beyond my pay grade. I would just go with these words are related, and if that is the meaning of the word, that is what it originally meant.
Hmm. Okay.
And now we're going to go with another one, which is, I think, a little bit more definite, because this one has something very interesting. We
Mhm.
have Hamim, which appears in 6 different surahs, and then one of them happens to have an additional tag, which is this one. I will just read it as Ain, I'll read it as ASQ. So HM in 6 places, and one of those, it has a separate one, ASQ. When we
Mhm.
look at the different readings, we see that fine, lots of them are as they appear now, HM, but some of the previous readings, of course, as always, irregulars, the H would still be the H, and they put that one in there. But then the mim is a little bit like we've seen with the nun and with the sad. We've seen that they used to write it out phonetically. And that's quite interesting for a reason we're just going to see in a second. And
Mm.
then the second one, it seems to always have been the same, except at one point they dropped the ein, which I don't know, find it a little bit weird. I don't know if you have any thoughts about this one, Joe?
No. I just noticed though, if you took away the 2 dots on top, it would be Asu, which is Esav, isn't it? Esau. But that example of the 2 dots missing is not given, and I'm not sure what shak could mean in this situation. So no theory here.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can actually find out words that are related to this. So the main thing to actually bear in mind is that this was spelled out like pretty phonetically at one
Mm.
point, and then it just became 2 consonants. Right. So as it happens, this is an actual word in the Quran, and we have it right here. And I'm going to show a few more. There are, it's hamim,
Mm.
and here is the root. It appears 20 times. 20 times. Great. Written like this, obviously without the space, which in the Qira'at is quite easy to then say it just got separated quite early on. But initially it would have been Hamim, it would have sounded exactly the same. 20 times.
Mhm.
Now, those, I'm sorry, that's why I do this on the second one, because it covers up a little bit, but those are the 20 instances where it appears. Now, once again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 20 of these instances of Hamim. They happen to be in surahs where they begin with this HM Kirat,
Mhm. Mhm.
Muqattaʿat. So if they start with something, that thing appears later on in the surah at this very high rate, is 1/4 of all of the instances of this word. I think that HM used to be basically one of these words, is Hamim,
Yeah.
and then they lose the meaning, they start editing things, they copy things wrong, and eventually it becomes HM. But if we roll back the clock, at one point it would say Hamim. So this
Yeah.
is, by the way, this is what Google Translate says that it means right now if you put Hamim and then the second bit. But the second reason that I think this is most likely the original meaning before it got twisted is because we see this one here, which is highlighted, and this one. So these ones are outside of this control group of the surahs that
Yeah.
begin with HM. But two of them, the word that appears immediately after happens
Oh.
to be
Yeah.
this.
It is, which is actually the variation that you showed on the previous slide.
And well, what are the chances of that? Well, a number of things. Imagine that this second word was a very common one, like Allah. You would say, hey, you cannot actually draw any parallels by a word being written before Allah because Allah appears thousands of times. But
Mhm.
this word is not a very common word. According to Corpus Quran, it appears 4 times only. We have them there. And out of 4 times, two of them, they happen to be written immediately after Hamim. So these two in here, they're these two highlighted here. So I think the chances of this being just a coincidence would be beyond astronomical, and that these words are all related. These words here are meant to be the word that became a disjuncted muqattaat, and the HM happen to be HM,
Mhm.
Hamim. And when we look at, again, grok, I know this is very bad, but um, just like to show as well. So I said, what happens if you have 114 boxes, the surahs, and then you pick 6 at random, but they are chosen consecutively, and then you throw 20 items. You can have 1 or 2 in those cases. What are the chances of 5 of them landing in that select group? And the chances are basically just very close to 0. And this is even without taking into account this other thing. That calculation doesn't take into account this other word, this other rasam appearing twice out of 4 times right after Hamim.
Yeah,
So I think the chances are probably,
very, very slim.
yeah,
Right. So this word is it means festering and percolating, and can mean something which is, of course, a festering wound. But you can also say festering devotion, or percolating devotion. When your love festers for something, it becomes more intense. And the love also is passion as well, or devotion, passion. That's why it's boiling and hot. You see, something is boiling hot. So you've got festering devotion as a kind of a concept here, or percolating, bubbling away, devotion, which is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So that's a very nice concept. Intimate love, they've translated it there.
yeah. And the way that it appears in all of the other surahs, one could see how it would make sense. It's talking about a descension of the Quran, something like that. So if this is strong, something like that, it could make sense. But it does look like these words were related. Whether this was the original meaning or not, well, that's open for discussion. But like you have said, it does seem to be about passion. And with that, actually, we
Yeah,
have
passion.
then
Yeah.
the other stuff, which I know is the one that, oh, what a second. Oh yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that here,
Oh, go on.
which
Yeah.
is, if we consider then hamim and then this one in here, meaning something like this, like passion, hot, heat, intensity, something like that, you could see how they would have it would have made sense, like to a degree, considering that maybe they changed things after to just hide the meaning a little bit more. But with this theme of passion,
Mm.
the next one then that I'm not going to cover because I think there are a couple of options here, but I think Joe is probably right about it. I'm going to just put this one on a screen, and Joe, sorry, I have someone at the door. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Okay,
So
sure.
maybe you can actually explain this Alif Lam Mim, which we have discussed already before.
So then I can't control the back and forth with this because the controls are in JC's hands. But at least on this page, in relation to the last page, the concept of the passion or intense passion, the intense passion being something which is a continuation of the revelations of God, or something through which God is revealing his message to mankind. It relates to this word here, which is another one of the Muqattaʿat, and it is almu, which means which means pain or suffering. Again, passion in a different meaning can also mean suffering. So the suffering of the Christ, the passion of the Christ, and again the context is again referring to this as some text which is a guidance for mankind, as a guidance for those who are pious, a guidance for those who are who have good souls, and will be ignored by people who don't have good souls. So it's basically the idea that there is something, a story, which is already in existence, and the people know about it, and it's being referred to as alamu. And in another place, it was being referred to by the hamim. That was the other way of referring to it. Again, meaning the same thing: intense passion, intense love, intense devotion. And so there is some act of intense love, which is the means through which the revelation is of the truth is coming to mankind. And then you've got another reference to it as the Sadiq again, so the messianic reference there. So the intense passion of the Messiah or the Sadiq is a theme throughout these Muqattaʿat. Now, of course, that is very challenging to standard Islamic narrative. If you were trying to push an idea that the Quran was nothing to do with Jesus or a messianic Noahide agenda, and you were trying to start a new Arabic religion with an Arabic prophet, then these passages, these verses, these Muqattaʿat would become something which would be standing in your way. They become an obstacle to you taking control of the narrative and developing it in an Arab nationalist way. And so I think there's a good argument that these letters have become mysterious in order to enforce a non-Messianic Noahide, or at least an Arab nationalist agenda, which cannot be challenged by the Messianic, very clearly Messianic meanings of these letters. Are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else you can add?
Well, with Alif Lam Mim, I think you are very likely spot on about it, because it does mean, well, pain, suffering. And of course, if we try to interpret that from Islam, it makes no sense, because why would that be there? But once we figure out, we look at the Quran, it never denies the crucifixion. In fact, it says that the crucifixion did happen and Jesus died. And it says something about piercing, which it actually sounds like they pierced Jesus. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
they have actually hidden all of that.
Mm-hmm.
The theme of pain, suffering, passion would
Yeah.
have made a lot of sense, except that they have done a very good job trying to hide it.
Yes, well, not very just dropping a letter here, dropping a letter, and I think the main thing is the narrative, and I find this. This channel doesn't take sides between Christians and Muslims. We don't take sides, but if you are from a Christian background and you think that it's probably possible, but from an Islamic background, you'll think it's impossible. But Muslims have often pointed out to Christians how they believe a point which isn't biblical or isn't in the New Testament, but it's taken for granted that that's the truth, and the Muslims will be tearing their hair out trying to point to a Christian that this verse clearly says such and such, and the Christian says yes, but you've got to understand it in context. But the same reply goes back then. If the Muslim understands that about the Christian, that's what the Christian can understand about Islam right now with these verses. It's clear, it's there, it's in front of your eyes. But the response which is going to come back from the Muslims is no, you don't understand. You have to understand the context of Muqattaʿat. These are mysterious. These are mysteries, and nobody can challenge or question them. But if you could just open your eyes, each of you, and see through the other's eyes, try to put yourself in the other person's position for once, you will realize that this is a strong argument. It just because everybody tells you that it means something else, and you've been brought up with that meaning, and you've been brought up with that indoctrination, brainwashing essentially from childhood until adulthood, it doesn't mean that what you have been taught and what your parents were taught and what they were taught beforehand in madrasas or wherever they were, where they got the standard Islamic narrative, it doesn't mean that that's true. But the same can also apply to those who are trying to believe the Bible from a standard church narrative. What your church tells you is not necessarily true. You do have to open your eyes and see what's there in front of you on the page. And I'll just, no offense to anybody, but example is trying to find Sunday Sabbath in the Bible. You can't find it in the Bible. It's pretty clear what's happened there. It was obviously Havdalah, which is celebrated on Sunday morning, but it is a celebration of the Saturday Sabbath, not the Sunday Sabbath. So that's how things get transferred. People are practicing one thing, and gradually the understanding of the thing that they're practicing, the Havdalah, is dropped, and eventually they believe that the Sunday worship has been established by the Bible because everybody was doing that. And so the same thing could be happening here. Slowly, a letter gets dropped, and then the meaning gets lost, and eventually they just become a mystery.
Yes, and if all that we had to go by is the Hafs version, the mystery is already there and it cannot be solved. So
Right.
if there was only one version of the Quran, well, it's game over. They have always been, we would accept that they have always been unknown. And if there was a meaning, well, there's only one Quran. But now we do have other resources and we have manuscripts and stuff that we can check and
Hmm.
see that, hang on a minute, we now have Kirat, we know that things changed. I have noticed, for example, lots of words that the initial ya becomes a ta and vice versa. Those things are on the website from Shadi Nasser. So we know
Hmm.
that lots of changes happened. If they did happen, then the next question is, hang on a minute, were these Muqattaʿat written as a mystery from God to begin with, or maybe, just maybe, they actually had a meaning and they lost the meaning in the translations. So I think now that we're having all of that evidence, is there's a good chance that some Muqattaʿat will never be solved, but there are others that by looking at other readings, the answers will be there waiting for us, like looking through the looking glass back in time and seeing what was happening in the 7th century, something like that.
Very good. And then another reason why some of the letters could be dropped from uh, uh, the examples which we've shown here is a system of encryption, which was used in the olden days, especially amongst Jews, when you would write a letter to somebody and you wanted to make sure that you received the letter from the person who sent it to you. You would agree ahead of time with your friend that you're going to write to, or your important contact that you're going to write to, that you would have a certain code uh, that you would both understand, and that would be mainly how many times a particular letter occurs or group of letters occur throughout your text you were sending to them. So you would write out your text, and then you would alter your text and write it out a second time, dropping out or adding in occurrences of letters to make sure that the final number of those letters would add up to a multiple of, say, 19. This is not magic. This is straightforward, simple, and easy to understand, that anybody can do this. For example, and the clue to the 19 would be, for example, a little phrase at the beginning of the letter, like, for example, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which has got 19 letters and the letters add up to a multiple of 19, which is basically a way of encryption and saying this letter, you have to look for the multiples of 19s of particular letters, and they will be a multiple of 19 because you've got the 19 letters up there. And so you will find, and a lot of research has been done on this by groups of people called 19er, Muslims called 19ers and submitters. You'll find that the letters of these Muqattaʿat often occur a multiple of 19 times throughout the Arabic texts. And that's another indication that the reason why sometimes the spelling is a little bit odd, we've seen a letter drop, is possibly because it was encrypted that way in the first place. And so, or even misspelled on purpose in order to ensure that the encryption would remain intact as between the sender and the receiver, so they could understand. So I think that's important to bear in mind. But fundamentally, if you already know that the meanings are messianic, then and about the gospel, about the passion narrative, for example, and the things, and about the Messiah, then you're not going to find any mystery in it. You're just going to know that these letters were arranged in such a way for a number to be, which would be a secret number, a mysterious number, which only the receiver would know. And so gradually, I mean, these days, you don't want to reveal your encryption key to just anybody. And if somebody's coming to your looking through your computers and doing an audit, and they come to a certain file and say, "What's this?" And your answer is just going to be, "That's my encryption file." Okay. So, in the same way, if somebody was not wanting to reveal how the encryption was taking place, and somebody asked, "What does this letter mean?" because they didn't recognize the spelling, the answer could come back and simply say, "That's a mystery," because they don't want you to know their secret encryption technique. And so, in time, the messianic meanings get left behind, lost, and only the memory of, oh, it's a mystery, continues, but they don't even know the system which is being spoken about as a mystery. So the system which is being spoken about is a system of counting the numbers. Every letter is a number in Semitic languages. Every Semitic letter is also a number. So you count the occurrence of these numbers and you will add them up and you'll get a multiple of 19 and you will recognize that this text has not been tampered with, for example. Unfortunately, the 19ers, the Muslims who are the 19ers and the submitters, and there's no offense intended here, but we don't take sides with any particular sect, except for Messianic Noahides, in which case we're completely on your side, and everybody else is wrong. Because this channel, my channel here, is biased. I have a bias, and I don't hide and pretend that I don't have a bias. So just think that it's the correct truth this way. But nevertheless, those 19ers and submitters will go too far then and try and look for the multiples of 19 everywhere in absolutely everything. To the point where they actually delete verses from the Quran in order to fulfill their miraculous 19 thing, which they are obsessed with. Well, they used to until September the 11th, when there were 19 hijackers, and suddenly the submitters and 19ers became completely silent on the internet and didn't talk about the number 19 again. But anyway, I'm not saying that they were guilty of September 11th. It's just that it was a very unfortunate that their obsession with 19 turned out to be not always a very positive thing. All right.
Yeah, I think actually you're absolutely right when you say that we shouldn't actually take sides. I think we need to upset everybody in equal measure. So
Yes.
would probably
Except the
just
Messianic Noahides.
yeah. So
I'm not biased.
with this, yeah, it's
we're
everybody would
always
have.
we're always upset. We're always upset anyway. Everybody's always persecuting us, saying how the Jews are ruling the world and the Noahides are like some kind of secret spies, and we get a lot of persecution anyway. So I think we're allowed to just say on this channel, take the sides of the Messianic Noahides, at least here, a safe space for Messianic Noahides. But yes, I agree with you. We shouldn't be afraid of looking at something in the face, looking at its ugliness. And on this channel, just in case you are watching, you think, oh, they're just gung-ho Zionist. No, we're not. We're extremely anti-Zionist on this channel. We're extremely critical of the secular state of Israel as well. So we do look at our own ugliness as well.
And for me, the focus is the Quran. I'm just the guy who points at a verse in the Quran and says, hey, that actually sounds odd. And as simple as that. Now, with this, particularly with Alif Lam Mim, I think it is very likely that it is what you suggest, and it is something to do with suffering. And that's why that's one of the things that have to go. Now, there is, I think, another option as well, that it could be a blend, that it doesn't always mean the same thing. There could be a number of things. I know that Alif Lam Mim appears in the Quran many times when it introduces a rhetorical question. And it is possible that, for example, say out of these 6 instances, 4 of them actually meant pain, but then the other 2, they actually introduced a rhetorical question. And the whole thing just went even more difficult, because all of a sudden we are looking for one answer to fit into this category of 6 instances. It might not be the case. There could be 2 or 3 different answers that we need in order to solve this. So that is actually one thing that we may be doing wrong, to assume that there is one answer that fits all. Might not be the case. In terms of the numbers, it reminds me, as you were talking, the film Sherlock Holmes, Game of Shadows, when Sherlock Holmes actually sends a message to his brother, and the message is like very rude.
Right.
And then the brother says, no, if a message actually begins with a consonant, then the message is the mirror opposite of what is written, or something like this. So quotes certainly have been like a common thing. With this, after looking at the Muqattaʿat, at the Qira'at, and seeing that there are so many variants, what I would say is, if there was an original code, then it is very likely for it to now have changed a lot, so much that we would have to look at the very original document in order to say, oh yeah, this is what it means. I've seen so many changes that I would say, if that were the case, it would probably be impossible to prove, because there are so many variants, including this one here. Oh, sorry, let me actually just use the mouse a little bit. In the very first one, in Surah 2, this one here, so Dalika, which actually means this instead of that. But in one of the Qira'at, this word doesn't appear in one of the readings. Is this one? is about sending the Tanzalu, sending something
We have
down. So
revealed.
it's like, okay, yeah, which one is the original? Which one should we look at in order to understand Alif Lam Mim? Or was this a distraction? Or was the other one a distraction? So there are so many variables that makes me think, okay, if it was a code, it's just going to be almost, very difficult to prove. Like, I'll use another example. The Quran has 6,236 verses. And it's like, well, it would be very easy to say, okay, so 6 at the beginning, 6 at the end, and the 2 in the middle is 2 and 3. So that's 2 times 3, that's 6. It spells 666. Oh, you see the proof. This is the Antichrist or something. And it's like, it's numerology.
Mm.
It cannot be proven unless we found a manuscript from someone saying, hey, from Al Hajjaj or something, saying, hey, I made sure that all of this added to 6, 2, 3,
Right.
6, so that people figure it out. It's like, if there is no proof, it's just a very happy coincidence, but just coincidence. So that's why when it comes to these numbers, it's like it could be, but it could be just a coincidence, like you said about the hijackers.
Yeah.
Maybe it had something to do with a particular belief. Maybe it was just a coincidence, and then we are reading a lot into it. As humans,
Yeah.
we do it with animals. We look at animals and we anthropomorphize our own feelings into the animals and think, oh, look, the animal is doing something quite human. And it's like, no, we are reading that in a place that there isn't. So
Right.
humans were very good at doing that. I try to put my hands up and say maybe, but I wouldn't actually bet on it either way, because could be just a big coincidence, could be the truth, and it's certainly beyond my pay grade to come down one way or the other.
It's
So
very important, yes. Well, the when you try to put just so you know, with regards to the 19 code, you try to put it into a computer. I did this actually. I used to enjoy doing this. I knew about it a lot when I was younger. In when was it? 1998, 1999, that sort of time. And would just put all the letters into a computer as number values, so that we knew what they were supposed to be. And you will find, sure, there are sometimes a verse where it's absolutely true, but not every verse always, because exactly the text has altered over the centuries. Now, this idea that the letters of the Quran haven't changed, letter for letter, word for word, there's no change for the past 1,400 years. This was never a concept in Islam until, by the way, and we have to emphasize this, until the 19ers, or the submitters as they call themselves, came along. And they're recent. They followed somebody called Rashid Khalifa, who was an Egyptian mathematician in the 20th century. So before he came along pushing the Hafs and saying the Hafs hasn't been changed letter for letter, word for word for 1,400 years, nobody in Islam said that. That was not a standard part of the standard Islamic narrative. It's something which grew from this unusual sect of Muslims called the 19ers and spread to all the other sects of Islam, because they like the idea that there should be some kind of mathematical miracle in the Quran, rather than actually checking it out properly for themselves and working it out. That it could be useful to help understand, um, you know, passages which haven't been changed, and which have been changed, but they didn't want to look at it like that. They took it as a dogmatic approach, to try and just say everything is perfect and hasn't changed for 1,400 years. And of course, that is untenable position. It's a position which does not exist. It's not true. It's simply not true. There are instances of that, but it's not true all the way throughout. And usually the instances where it's possible are very simple instances which are very easy to manipulate by human hand or human brain to work it out and to write it out like that. But the ones which are more difficult, then you had things like Rashid Khalifa actually omitting two verses of, I can't remember, it's Surah 2, I think it is. He deleted two verses from Surah 2 and said, these two verses don't fit with my mathematical design. Therefore, I am actually God's messenger who has come along to purify the Quran by deleting the verses which have corrupted it. Something like that. Basically, that was his line. And you get these 19ers following him as a kind of a new messiah figure, and that's how it goes on. But the other thing I just want to say is that there should be multiplicity of meaning in any good work of art. That's what art does, whether it's literature, that is what the Quran is. It is actually literature, literature and prose, um, or whether it's a work of art, visual art, or whether it's musical art. There should always be a juxtaposition, and that is what makes something good art. Is if the juxtaposition is good. And in literature, the juxtaposition is usually about puns and ideas, not just ideas contrasting, comparing and contrasting ideas, but also making puns so that a verse could be read in multiple ways and have a good meaning still. That's a good work of literature. That's one of the joys of Shakespeare, for example, and many other. I just picked up Shakespeare as a typical example that everybody knows about, most people study in school, but there's plenty of examples of that throughout literature in every language and every country around the world. And so we shouldn't be surprised that the Quran has also tried to get this. It's not poetry, but it is prose, and that's a real fact. It is prose.
Yeah, and actually, if, for example, say Rashid Khalifa was a little bit on point, basically there is a code. What I would say is maybe, and really, I don't delve into this, is beyond my skill. But
Mm.
if that's the case, and say that Alif Lam Mim was meant to actually indicate something, if we then got together, maybe with a computer, the different readings, maybe that is what would help unlock
Right.
which ones are the right words and not.
Good point.
Maybe this is not Dalika, maybe it's Tanzalu. So
Right.
maybe
Good
by
point.
if there is a code, but how to do that and the level of computing that it
It's a
would be
lot.
required, and
And
assuming that we
yeah.
do have all of the Qira'at, especially
Yeah.
the ones that answer the problem, that would be wow. Okay, somebody else can work on that. Okay,
It's a
I'll
big
wait for
it's
the
a big job.
results.
It's a massive job. But it's look, if you're looking for a PhD out there and you're wanting an idea, then why not go for it? Get together all of the Qira'ats that you possibly can, do solid research to find every single last one of them. I understand that there's supposed to be 600 of them in total. Try and find every single one version you can, stick every single one of them into a computer where every letter has a numerical value, and then try and work out which ones actually are consistent with the code. Then congratulations, you definitely got your PhD in computer science and early Quranic sort of textual criticism. So, bravo. With regards to Rashid Khalifa, he was simply a mathematician, and he had no textual criticism understanding. He had no linguistics background. He couldn't understand the Judeo-Arabic, Aramaic references, Syriac references, Greek references, Hebrew references. He didn't understand that. He was not a Semitic linguist. But if you're going to go for a PhD, become a Semitic linguist and a computer programmer and stick the two together, and a historian. So you've got three. It's a triple discipline: Islamic historian, Semitic linguist, and computer programming, and then stick it all together, and you're definitely going to be a doctor in a few years' time. But not for me. What about you, JC?
No, I think that's actually, I'm past the age of actually
Yeah,
going
yeah.
through that trouble. I will wait for the young and bright generation
Yes,
to figure those things out. I will just try
exactly.
to send them in the right direction if I can a little bit, and then they can do the heavy lifting.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for more PhD ideas to get for your PhDs, because of course people are running out of ideas, then just like and subscribe to this channel, because we've got them coming out of our eyeballs. There are too many ideas. So just click like and subscribe and make sure you watch through the videos. Now, I think, are we at the end of this presentation right now, JC?
Yes, let me actually
We
just
are.
flick back to the very start where we
Yeah.
actually saw the Muqattaāt, so we can see them like an um, bird's eye view. So yeah,
There
this
you
is
go.
basically
Right.
what we have gone through today. So Tasin TSM and possibly as well TS, because that one is in the middle, and saying that, well, maybe it's just a bit unlikely that these words happen to appear there. Then the Hamim and the one that is a little bit longer,
Mm.
HMASQ, the Nun, which is from the narrative, but still we use it, if they've done the work, we can say that that's what they said. And also Taha, possibly to do with Tuwa, and Sad, which is most likely what you said, and it was as
Sad.
simple as
Yeah.
Sadiq, and they
Yes.
just messed it up
Very
a little
simple.
bit. So
Very simple. So I think what's worthwhile, I don't know if you've noticed, I've been starting to put up a few songs on this channel recently, and I think it's worthwhile making some songs then about these with these pronunciations. So I'll probably get to do that sometime, one at a time over the period of the following year, and maybe you'll like that if you want to subscribe as well. So I'll be putting up the verses with the pronunciation as we have studied today. And if you think there's more, because we didn't do all of them, we didn't do Alif Lam Ra, we haven't done that, we haven't approached it, we haven't done the Alif Lam Mim Sad, we haven't done, although Alif Lam Mim Sad could actually just be the Passion of the Christ, literally, because Alif Lam Mim could be Passion and Sad is Sadiq, so there you go, that could literally be the Passion of the Sadiq, there you go. But then Alif Lam Mim Ra, we haven't done that one. And the Kaf Ha Ya Ein Sad we haven't done, but I think that Kaf Ha Ya Ein Sad is related to the story of John the Baptist rather than Jesus. So if you're, or Moses or anybody else, if you're looking for that one, I think that the story is going to be something to do with John the Baptist there. But present your ideas in the chat below, maybe, or if you've, I don't know, I should check the chat to see if there's any more comments in the chat. Has anybody posted anything? We've got a few more comments from John there, and we got one from you, of course. You've got that there as well. But nobody else has put some ideas in the chat. If you want to, though, you can put your ideas. Oh, the chat is going to end soon, but the comment section underneath this video will open up, and you can put your ideas about the remaining ones in there, or any other ideas that you have about the ones we've spoken about so far. But so far, I mean, we've gone through more than half of them, and they do seem to have very messianic overtones there. So I expect that we're going to see more messianic references and possibly to John the Baptist as well. So some songs might be in order, and welcome to have your free donations for ideas which you would like to hear in some of those songs. All right, that's it. Shall we go through the comments?
yes, please.
All right. So last chance for you to type in the comments while I'm going through this. So John, of course, is the first one who popped in today. He said shalom, Shabbat shalom to you too, Achi. And he brought up this question, interesting, later on. Jazeera, he asked, is that where Al Jazeera gets its name from? And actually, it is. Yes, you saw that. We could go back to the Gabriel Reynolds page where he was mentioning Jazeera. Can you do that, JC?
Pardon?
On the slide where it mentioned Gabriel Reynolds' Tuva, the Tuva slide.
Okay, so Gabriel Sauma.
Salma, sorry, not Reynolds. Yeah.
Okay. To here.
Yeah, that's the one. I believe it's. Is that the one where Al Jazeera is mentioned? I think it is the one where Al Jazeera was. We're talking about Jazeera. Yeah, Jazeera. Exactly, there it is. So that Jazeera is the same one. Al Jazeera gets its name from that. It's a place in northern Iraq, and it's also the original homeland of Abraham, according to Jewish tradition. And there are some early Christian traditions which back that up. At least the Diary of Agaria, and I can't remember the other source now, but there are a few sources which indicate that that was understood by early Christians to be the home of Abraham as well. Later Christians changed it to southern Ur in the south of Iraq. And the earliest reference to Mecca also, when you follow the directions given in that, tell us that it is in the same area, in Jazeera. So we shouldn't be looking for Mecca down in Hijaz, but we should be looking for one in the Jazeera instead. So that's well spotted. Good point. All right, then. And then he says, I doesn't mind whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday. I'm grateful we get a day off at the weekend. Amen. And then he says, Surah 9 was where the 2 verses were deleted. Surah 9. Thank you, John. I didn't realize. I was wondering which verse it was. I thought it was Surah 2. So it's Surah 9, which Rashid Khalifa deleted the 2 verses in order to claim his prophethood. And he says, I love puns. And that is exactly what good literature is always going to do. I mean, good prose at the very least. And yeah, he just, as you said, he abrogated a couple of verses. No big deal. I mean, that's been done many times before in Islam, right? So why not Rashid Khalifa? because the gates of Ijtihad were closed, I think, I don't know how many, they say 800 years ago, so nobody had a right to do so. But he thought, well, I can come along and open those gates again. So he did so, or he tried to, and the 19ers follow him. At least, as I said, until 19 hijackers, and then they all shut their mouths. No 19 here. Please don't investigate us. I'm sure that they were not the ones responsible. I'm not implying that or suggesting that at all. They're pretty peaceful people. They're pretty modern Muslims, and there's nothing really much wrong with them. But except they actually even challenge the standard Islamic narrative a lot of the time as well. So, I don't have a problem with the 19ers. It's just that it was an unhappy coincidence for them. Except that I think that they were pushing 19 so much around the world that other fanatical groups of Muslims also came to believe that 19 was a sacred number, and so they could have chosen to have the 19 hijackers as a result of Rashid Khalifa's work. So, well done, Rashid. Okay, that's sarcasm, by the way. I'm not saying congratulations. I agree with this September 11. Okay, so he said he abrogated and said, "Trust me, bro." Exactly. That's what they always say, isn't it? Trust me, bro. Wallahi. So, Deacon Yossi, I've always wanted to ask you this question. What became of the Essenes? As you said before, the descendants of the Pharisees are the rabbinic Jews. Who are the descendants of the Essenes? Well, you know what? The descendants of the Essenes are actually the rabbinical Pharisaical Jews. They became what we call the Hasidim. So the Hasidic Jews are actually descendants of the Essenes. Do not imagine for a moment that the Essenes were Christian, as you understand Christian. They did not believe in. There was only one group. There were three groups of Essenes, but there was only one group which believed in the virgin birth and the sort of a more divine Jesus than the other Essenes, and they were called the Gnostic Essenes, or Essene Gnostics, which were basically Noahides who were previously Gnostics and had been converted to Noahides by the other Essenes. And the other Essenes were essentially Hillelite Hasidic Jews, and the Hasidim descend from them. That line comes down. They descend from the Essenes, and this was argued by two Pharisaical Jews. One is Elijah Soloveitchik, who was very famous, comes from a very famous Lithuanian Pharisee family, and the other is Rabbi Harvey Oscar Falk of blessed memory, who died not so long ago, several years ago. And he was also working on the sort of Noahide project, and he came to this conclusion as well, having studied all references to the Essenes in the Talmud, which most people don't really focus on. But looks like the Essenes were nothing but Pharisaical, Hillelite, and Hasidic Jews, Hasidean Jews. Somebody's trying to find out where the cat is, and they have just identified the cat is in the room with me. Everything's fine. So they shall close the door and leave me alone now. That's fantastic. So that's the answer to your question. Sorry about the random comment at the end there. So who are the descendants of the Essene Qumran community? Now, the Qumran community, it's not the same as the Dead Sea. Don't confuse Qumrans and Dead Sea, just in case. But a lot of the things which you see in the Qumran scrolls are things which Hasidic Jews talk about and in Kabbalic terms. So it's basically Kabbalah and people who understood the Kabbalah, and they had a positive view of Jesus. Jesus of Nazareth was not and is not considered an enemy to Jews and Judaism amongst the Pharisaical, that's the Perushim, the Pharisees, and the Hasidic Jews. But he had a step-nephew who was named after him. His step-nephew, because it was from his stepbrother Yossi, that's my name, Joseph, who was the son of his stepfather Joseph. And that man impregnated Mary Magdalene, and they had a child. And Mary Magdalene chose to name her child after her teacher, her rabbi, and called him Jesus as well. And because he was from the same Nazarene family, he's also a Jesus Nazarene. And so you get that name, Yeshu Notzri. Interesting, you mentioned 666 earlier, JC, because 666 is actually the numerical value of this boy's name. When you add up the value of his name, letters come to 666. And we hate him. He is like the Antichrist for Judaism. But we like Magdalena's teacher. Magdalena's teacher is a good guy, Magdalena's son is the bad guy. That's all you have to remember. They're both called Jesus Nazareth or Nazarene Jesus, but one is called Yeshua min Natzrat, and the other one is called Yeshu Notzri. Two very different names, very different spellings, same concept behind each name, and easily confused with each other. But one is the son of Magdalena, who Judaism considers evil, and the other one is a teacher of Magdalena, who Judaism considers holy and good, a righteous man. So that's that. If you study and see everything that the Essenes say about Jesus, that's basically what the Hasidians have been saying about Jesus for 2,000 years. Of course, Hasidic Judaism, as we know it today, descends from Baal Shem Tov, but the Hasidei Ashkenaz existed for hundreds of years before Baal Shem Tov, and the Hasidic tradition or the Hasidean tradition goes way back. Even in the book of Maccabees, they talk about the Hasidians. So Hasidic Judaism has older origins than modern Hasidic Judaism, just like modern Pharisaical Judaism has older origins too in ancient Pharisee tradition. But that was the group that you're looking for. And he has another question. He says, also, who are the descendants of the Sadducees? Well, I would say the Muslims. Thank you, Todarabah. Sadiqim. In fact, my colleague, Ben Abrahamson, has a channel on has a website called asadiqin.org, I think it is, and it's all about the fact that the Muslims descend from the Sadducees. That's his main argument is pushing that they are actually Sadducees. In fact, Abu Bakr as-Sadiq also means Abu Bakr the Sadducee in Judeo-Arabic. So Sadducees do not have the gentleness of the oral Torah, what we call Torah Shebe al-Peh, which is, of course, what the Sadducees are always pushing, telling everybody how evil it is and how you mustn't touch it and you mustn't approach it, and it's wicked, evil, nasty, rotten thing. The Talmud and the Talmudic Jews who follow us we shall be killed. They're always telling everybody that we should get rid of us. But the Talmud is actually just badly misunderstood and has bad press. It's not as bad as you think it is, especially when you go to sort of websites like, I don't know, shoahph.org, I think it is, the Palestinian Shoah website, where they have very anti-Semitic things posted there about Jews and Judaism and what our Talmud says. It doesn't say any of those things. It's all taken out of context. It's all bad translations, and I can explain more. And welcome any questions. Don't be embarrassed to post your questions about that with me. I'm always happy to explain the truth if you have any questions on particular ones. Because a lot of people are afraid to ask Jews because they're such offensive questions. They think, "Oh my goodness, I couldn't possibly ask a Jew that." But go ahead, I won't be offended. I'm happy to answer your questions. Anyway, the point is that those the Talmud is a book of peace, a big book of. It sounds like I'm talking about Islam right now. The Quran is a book of peace. It's a religion of peace. The Talmud is a book of peace. My turn now. The Talmud is a book of peace. It's all esoteric. It's all spiritual. And it's all about softening the blow of the Old Testament. Because if you follow a religion based on the Old Testament alone, a sola scriptura Old Testament religion, you're going to be a bloody psychopath, to be honest. You know, it's absolutely horrific. It's a very, very nasty religion, which you'll get out of the Old Testament alone. And that's what the Sadducees did. You have commandments to go into the land of Canaan, the land of the Holy Land, the land of Israel, we call it today, or Palestine, and you have a commandment to go and kill every man, woman, and child, and all of their animals, and to burn down all of their trees. I mean, that's the sort of religion we're talking about the Sadducees following. And then that's exactly what these Sadducees did in the 7th century when they went and invaded the Holy Land. They basically went and killed all the Christians, man, women, and child, and all their animals, and burnt down all their trees, and sowed salt in the land. So, that is the religion you get when you follow the Old Testament alone, a sola scriptura Old Testament. It is a psychotic religion. It's a very nationalistic and unpleasant thing. The Talmud is what we call, like, if you remember that song, "A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down." It's literally the same with the Talmud. A spoonful of Talmud helps the Old Testament go down. But the Sadducees are very violent, aggressive, and zealous people, and that is the group out of which Islam emerged. And Sebios makes reference to these people, how they came into power and took control of the Arabs and then went and invaded the Holy Land. And we see in Islam, what's his name? Lloyd de Jong is an expert on the Sharia of the Shafi Sharia, and he will tell you what kind of a horrific religion the Shafi Sharia depicts, but it is no different at all whatsoever from Sadducee Judaism. It's the same religion. Everything that Lloyd John will tell you that the Sharia says concerning Islam, the Shafi Sharia, that is the religion of the Sadducees. It's no different. It's not just a close, some people say, well, Judaism seems quite close to Islam. It is, because Judaism is close to Sadducee Judaism. At least it's both Judaism, and Sadducee Judaism is identical to Shafi Islam, which is going to make some people say, there you go, the sola scriptura Old Testament is the truth, and we don't want to have the Talmud because it's diluting the truth, and it's a wicked Talmud which is taking away the truth of kill everybody who you don't like, basically. And so you're going to get that kind of fanatical person out there. But my recommendation is you ignore them. And if you're a Shafi, I would also say, change religion fast right now, because you're on the wrong path. And if you're Hanbali, you're even worse than the Shafis, because that's pretty psychotic. But try and come back to something more rational, more Noahide, and more Talmudic, that is oral Torah, softened with basically, the New Testament is just the oral Torah. There's nothing different from the New Testament and the Talmud. So you will be a better person, and life will be a nicer experience, and the world will become a better place if you go down that path, I think. Okay.
Yes, actually, just to comment on that, there are people to this day, even, in great numbers, who will do really horrible things for things that they just make no sense. Like even football, there will be people who will analyze other people because of football, and it's like, are you kidding me? So there will always be those who basically just take any excuse, sometimes it's just excuses, to do evil things. And
absolutely,
trying to unpack that, you need probably a psychiatrist to try to understand it. But one of the things that I always found quite interesting is when I see Christian apologists discussing the Bible, and Muslims would say, oh, but look at this Old Testament. And I always find it funny, like the rules now, they are not the rules from 3,000 years ago. And every Christian will see the Old Testament as the history, the story, and the proof of Jesus, but Jesus is the one to follow, not Moses, not King David. That is the history. But they always play those and says, you see, it's very violent, but it's weird. It's like you are not speaking with a Sadducee. You're actually speaking either with a Christian or with a Pharisee. It's like they don't follow that, but they still go to the Old Testament and they see those
push
things.
the Sadducee religion,
Like,
which is their own religion. They're just pushing their own religion and their own interpretation of. Yeah, I know, it's pretty miserable. Interesting you mentioned football hooligans, because they're the same actually, and it's quite ironic that the Anglo Saxon or the English football hooligans are recognized in the world for being the worst football hooligans in the world, and yet those are people who you'll find often are also the most Islamophobic. And it's ironic because they're the same character, whether you are a football hooligan who's an Islamophobic football hooligan, or whether you're an Islamofascist who wants to take control of, say, for example, the United Kingdom or Europe. Then you're basically two sides of the same coin. Your personality is exactly the same. As JC said, you both need psychiatric help, and I do hope you will get the help you need to become a calmer and nicer person. And so I would say that the psychiatric help which Judaism needed was the oral Torah, the Talmudic traditions, which actually cured the psychosis of kill all of your enemies, and man, women, and child, and kill all their animals and burn down all their land. Our religion is a very old religion, and we've gone through that psychosis, and we've come out the other end, and we are mellow now. At least the scribal Pharisees are mellow now, and I hope that everybody else will do the same. The New Testament is a good source for the same attitude, and Islam is lacking that. They don't have anything to soften or mellow it out. But perhaps the way to do so is to go back to the Noahide origins of Islam, and to focus on the New Testament, and to focus on the oral Torah, which is in the Quran. There's so many quotations of the Talmud in the Quran. It couldn't possibly be written by a group who didn't have knowledge of the oral Torah. And so if you want to improve your understanding of the Quran, instead of following psychotic Sadducees and their interpretations, nationalistic interpretations. How about going and reading the New Testament and also the Oral Torah to learn how to soften the blow and realize that, for example, when Peter is told to kill and eat all the animals on the sheets, and he realizes, this refers to the Gentiles, he doesn't go down to Cornelius, kill him and eat him. He goes down to Cornelius. He goes down to Cornelius and baptizes him. And this is considered to be a fulfillment of the vision of the commandment from heaven he had, where God told him to kill and eat all the Gentiles. So I just hope that when Muslims read a verse which says, kill the disbelievers wherever you find them, you'll say, I'll do it like St. Peter did with Cornelius then, and you'll take a peaceful approach to it rather than actually, St. Peter wouldn't have dreamt of going down and killing Cornelius and eating him. It wouldn't have crossed his mind. It was clearly symbolic and spiritual meaning. And if you want to take that sort of view on the Quran, you're going to have a nice religion. But if you take an oral Torah, and oral Torah is the same, we take that concept as well among the scribal Pharisees. To kill literally means to convert. It's literally the same meaning as St. Peter was taking in that. So scribal Pharisaical Judaism plus the New Testament believers, like say the Anabaptists, who I promote on this channel. I'm remembering their birthday this year is their 500th anniversary, and I got that little picture on my channel this year to remember them. If you've got scribal Pharisaical Judaism and the Anabaptists, you're going to have a peaceful, nice world, and everybody's going to be singing Kumbaya and being very happy together. And if only the Muslims would also say, you know what, we've got to get rid of this Sadducean approach to our religion, and we've got to go back and find out what the Oral Torah interpretation would be. I'm sure it's going to be a very nice solution. Okay, I'll move on to that. He says, some songs would be awesome. Yeah, I'm hoping to do some songs. And he says, sorry, I hope this is an okay question, but recently on Gabriel Said Reynolds' channel, there was this scholar talking about Huri. This scholar defended the sin interpretation, the standard Islamic narrative interpretation. What's your understanding? Well, we have a different opinion, don't we, JC?
Yes, and actually, I'm working on that one. I might actually even talk about it later on today on another show or very soon. There is a lot more to that story. I think I would say at this point, I don't think it's talking about Huris. It was never about that, and the Quran is not talking about you getting women in paradise. But that's probably going to. I'll speak about my
You don't want to
findings
spoil it,
very, very
yes?
soon.
Well, just stay
No, it's
tuned.
yes.
We're going to do it
Yeah,
soon. It's a good one.
yeah, there is basically there is it's not I don't want to spoil it. I want to not say something and then having to correct it like 5 minutes later. But yeah, we will talk about it. I think it has nothing to do with women.
Nothing to do with women. Oh, you could give. Can I give a hint? Can I give a hint, please, JC?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so the hint is, have a look at the dots around the word. Okay, that's it. Okay, that's the hint.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah. Because
yeah.
I won't say anymore. I think it might jump off the page. All right, so there's the hint. Stay tuned, like and subscribe, and we will do another one of these when we can, when we're feeling healthy and up for it. And he has one more question here. He asks about the cheeky question: what's your perspective on the Megillat Esther, Hadassah, in terms of historicity? And I say, well, it's 100% completely, totally true and historical. Why are you even bothering to ask the question? The answer is everything is got layers to it. Every story has got layers, and if it's a good story and it gets the point across, then Baruch Hashem. And if the full details were not exactly the same, then hey, who cares? As long as it's a good story, that's the most important thing. The story is revealed, and that's all that matters. But I do believe that Judaism does believe that Persians. I mean, this is Judaism as opposed to the state of Israel, right? But we do believe that Persians are our closest relatives. Even Netanyahu thinks he's some kind of messiah for the Zoroastrians. He thinks he's doing something good, and he's going to liberate all the Persians by destroying the Iranian government. That's a very different interpretation on the same thing. The same theme, but my interpretation is leave them alone. They're our brothers and they're our sisters, they're our cousins, because our belief is that so many Persians actually did convert to Judaism in the past that we are very, very similar in terms of music. I have a Persian piece of music, a piece of Persian poetry, which I recently put up on this channel, and that was performed by me with a synthesizer and pumping it through AI, of course, and my family, because we have Persian connections as well. In fact, the word Yiddish comes from Jidi. Jidi is actually the I know it sounds like an insult for Jews in Polish and Russian, but that term for Jews in Polish and Russian, that's Žid, comes from Jidi, which is actually the term for Persian Jews. So even Yiddish language means something to do with the Persian Jews because they were regarding us as Persian traders. So we have always had this kind of link with Persia and Iran, and you can see that in our music. You can see that in our culture. You can even see that when you stand side by side with me. And I was having a very wonderful conversation with a man who did not know that I was Jewish. And he was thinking, you seem so Iranian, he was saying to me. I was like, oh, thank you very much. And we were getting along. He was an Iranian man. And we were getting on wonderfully until, of course, at the end when I had to reveal that I was actually Jewish. And then he was so like thunderstruck. His face was so upset. And unfortunately, he never got back in touch with me again, which is sad because I really got along well with him and I really enjoyed his company and we thought we had a lot in common. And it's nice to see that. So we're very similar people, Persians and Jews, in reality. Even Kurdish people recognize that. A Kurdish ethnic composition, the genetic composition of Kurdish people is almost identical to the genetic composition of Jews. So, we do think that there has to be a reason for that. If at the very least, one group of Persians converted to Judaism and the Jews descend from that group of Persians, then the story of Esther has a truth in it, doesn't it? So that's my answer to your question there, John. Thank you for it. No problem. And it's not cheeky at all. And he says, Shalom vebrucha and Achim and all watching. Everyone, he's saying greetings to everyone and Shalom v'chesed aleichem. So, and you too, thank you so much. God bless you all. I hope you enjoyed the show and you'll be back for more music in the shorts. If you want to click on this channel's shorts, you can see some of the music we've been releasing. Got some nice Hebrew songs there, which you can say for Havdalah. We've also got some Quranic verses there. Which I'm hoping that they're quite popular actually. Some of those Quranic verses about basically about how you have to believe in the books, the previous books. You have to believe in the previous books, folks. I don't know how you can say you're a Muslim and not believe. I was, I believe in the Bible, but not the one that you've got. Well, the one we've got is based on the Septuagint, which was in the hands of the people who were alive at that time when the Quran was written, and which existed for hundreds of years before that time. So we have the same Bible. Which Bible do you believe in? And I suppose Manichaean Bible or something like that, something completely random. All right, that's all I got to say. Have you got anything to say?
No, just thank you very much for the conversation. It's been great, and I hope that this inspires some people watching to either find things that will enhance these arguments and then prove that some of these muqattaʿat now we can solve them, or prove us wrong and then find out the true answer. Because in the end, we care about the answer. If something that we've shown here happens to not be the final answer, hopefully someone will actually notice and say, okay, no, this is exactly what it meant. And like this, we are all winners. We just want to actually get to the final bit. So hopefully we manage to inspire someone to help with this. And if anybody has any thoughts about the ones that we haven't discussed, Alif Lam Mim Sad, Alif Lam Mim Ra, and all of those, please let us know. It will certainly help a lot. And thank you. I hope that people enjoyed this conversation. And everybody has a lovely weekend, and shalom, everybody.
Thank you very much. And I've got there, if you want to click on that link for about the next 5 minutes or so, you can come and have a chat backstage there. John, it'd be nice to meet you. Thank you for watching. So God bless you all. Have a blessed and holy Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. Don't forget to make sure to keep tahor for Shabbat. It's the only time of the week that you have to do tahor. So God bless you all. Take care and see you after that. Shalom. Bye-bye.